Hi, this is Joel with JRK Family Outdoors. We had a video request on how to clean a Coleman stove if you bought one from a yard sale or something like that, or if you found one in an old barn or something that your grandma and your grandpa used to use back in the old days. And so I thought I'd just try to go through real quick and simply and try to get it done quickly so you don't get too bored with it. Kind of what you can do to go through and clean up an old Coleman stove tank setup so you can get lots of use out of it. These things will last forever. No point in throwing them away and going buying a new one. If you can get one for 15-20 bucks at a yard sale, pick it up, clean it up, use it, and enjoy it. First of all, we're going to start off with the tank. Now there's many parts to the tank that can get clogged up and whatnot. Basically what you're going to want to do, and you can go in whatever order you want to do this, but what I would first do is you're going to want to take the end of this tube off. You just simply do that with a crescent wrench and spin it off. Now, I've already loosened all this stuff up just to make it a little easier and quicker, but you just want to take the end of it off. And you might want to find you a little container to put these little parts in so you don't lose them. But at the end of this thing you have your orifice. And you might have a different one. It might be the exact same one. You know, they change throughout the years and whatnot. But you just want to take a pair of pliers, and you don't want to grip it too hard. Take a pair of pliers, and you just want to pull that orifice out. And that's basically what you're looking at right there. Hopefully you can see that. But that orifice it's basically just a brass piece, a brass fitting that's got a hole in it, and that's what regulates your gas. Now you want to make sure that that's all clean and hold it up to the light so you can see the hole through there, and make sure that there's no debris, obstructions or anything, because there will be rust and whatnot that gets in there, and I'll show you that here in a minute why that is. Now, you want to be careful here, and this is where it gets kind of critical. You loosen this up, and when you pull this off, there's a spring in here. Turn this sideways to see if you can see this a little bit better. And then there's a long rod, and on the end of this rod is your needle. And that goes into the orifice, in which also helps regulate and shuts off your gas and whatnot. But that regulates the fuel that's being used for your flame, on whether you're using a high flame or a low flame. You need to be very, very careful with that, because if you break that, then you got to try to find parts to rebuild it. Now, once you get this apart, as you tear this apart, you can see on this spring where the spring is in pretty good shape back here, and there's nothing wrong with this spring. It just gets a little dirty, because at this point right here where it's dark, it gets a little rusty, but that's where the flame hits it to atomize the fuel to make it more of a vapor instead of a liquid. And this will get dark, it'll get dirty, it'll get kind of like your exhaust on your vehicle. It just gets a little dark buildup on there, and there's nothing wrong with it. All you basically need to do is just get you a wire brush, and you can clean this off. You can use a carb cleaner on there, or a brake cleaner, something that'll just clean that stuff off. I also recommend that if you have an air compressor, to blow it off with an air compressor, or if you don't have an air compressor, you can always go get one of these cans of compressed air that's used for computer work and whatnot, and you can just simply blow that off and just get all the dirt and debris and whatnot off. At the same time, you want to check your tube to make sure that there's no debris inside, and if there is, you want to clean that out as well. Now once you got that done, you're going to want to take and loosen this nut on the back side of this handle. And by doing that, you're going to bring that whole rod out. Again, still being very, very careful with this. If you look at it, the front section by the knob, just like the spring, is fairly clean. There's not much problem with it. But once you get down here where the burner section is, you start getting a little buildup. I've had these where they've had a lot of rust on them. Just like in a lantern, you get rust and dirt and whatnot, and then they don't want to move as easy. Then with the more junk that's around it, it gets more restrictive on the flow, and then you don't get as good of a flame, you don't get as good of a light out of your lantern and whatnot. The easiest way I found to clean these is to take a piece of steel wool, wrap it around there, and just run it back and forth. Keeping in mind, you got to be very careful with that needle at the very end. You might want to strip it like this, just going out that way so you don't come back and hit that needle. Now, I have bent those needles and I've straightened them up. They are fairly durable, but they can be easily broke. Now, if you pull this apart and you find that there's no needle on the end of it, you're going to have to try to find one on the internet. And there are several places that do sell parts, even for the very, very old ones. You can find places, and if you just do a little searching on Google, you can locate that stuff. So now that's fairly clean. You can rub your fingers on there after you're done. Do it before so you can feel the dirt, but do it afterwards and you can feel that it's fairly clean and whatnot. Another thing you might do, or need to do, is you might have to take this valve apart. Not necessarily. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I would recommend not if you don't have to, but if you end up putting this all back together and you're still not getting any pressure with the pump, and you've got good pressure, you might have to tear this all back apart and tear that apart in order to make sure you're getting a good flow out of there. Now, something I failed to mention, because honestly I didn't think there was any fuel in this tank, but you might want to empty the tank before you start doing all this work, just in case you spill or something like that. I don't know what to tell you to do with the fuel and whatnot. You can put it in a can, and if it's clean, you can put it right back in and use it. Coleman fuel will last a long, long time. It's not like regular gas, unleaded gas, that will lacquer up. It doesn't typically do that. But anyways, you might want to try doing that. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this back together. Being very careful with that needle still. Now, one thing I would recommend is to take your spring and slide it over, being still very careful with that needle. Slide it over the end. That's going to protect it, that needle, at the very end. Then take your tube and slide that back over your spring. And go ahead and thread it into the valve assembly. Now, I don't know if you can see this. Let me bring it in here a little closer. You can see that needle sticking out at the very end. Okay? Take your orifice and slide that over there and easily push it in. Don't force it. And make sure it seats in there well. Now you can see, I don't know if you can see this or not, but that needle will stick out through that orifice just a little bit. Then take your nut, slide it on there, and just tighten that all back down.